country. And so the idea that this is a white nation that needs to be preserved is a fascinatingly disgusting view, because this country is one for the many.
Ilhan Omar is not afraid to say she doesn't like her country. She's somebody who is an immigrant from Somalia by way of, I think, the either Saudi Arabia or the Sudan. I'm not sure. But she came here for a better life. She cannot go to Somalia today and speak out against that government the way that she does against our government, because she'll be jailed or worse. Yet she still wants a wholesale change. Let's not stop at defunding the police, she says. Let's change the entire system, because it's all corrupt, it's all oppressive, it's all white supremacy. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I've written an op-ed about it. I've introduced a resolution to censure her for that, because she took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And when you want to basically tear down and burn the Constitution, you're not upholding your oath, and so you probably ought to be censured. The strength of America, though, Joe, and this is what I'm really trying to get at in some ways, is we can withstand somebody who is so ungrateful, someone who lacks so much graciousness that they want to tear down our system that has afforded her the ability to become a member of Congress, the most powerful legislative body in the world.
Right.
And she wants to destroy that. And you know what? The way to remedy that is her voters can vote her out. That's a beautiful thing. It indicates what I've always contended, that the power of this government rests on the people of this country. The second thing is the people who serve with her in Congress. We're a self-governing body. It's set up by the Constitution, and we can discipline her. And I think we should. It's outrageous for what she said, but you know what? She can think that way all she wants, and she can say that all she wants, because of the strength of this country. And that's the great thing about America. And so we have to keep pushing back, though. We need to, if you're in Congress like me, we should be disciplining her for violating her oath of office. The other aspect of it is her voters need to vote her out. That's the two punishments. If she said it in most other places where there's totalitarian rule, guess what? There would be some kind of police force coming to take away. America is so great. We allow even ungrateful refugees who come here seeking refuge and asylum to become elected officials and trash our form of government. What a great...
No, it's a great country, and the fact is, she's the example that we're not misogynistic, that we're not racist, that we're not xenophobic. She is the example, and she's the one complaining about our system. But one thing, though, and this is about punishment. You're right; they could vote her out, but she comes from a very heavily Somali area in Minneapolis, so I don't know that she's going to get voted out. But having said that, she took the oath on to uphold the Constitution, all enemies, foreign and domestic. And as she's the one attacking the Constitution that she swore to defend, isn't there any hell to pay other than censure, which probably won't happen because it's run by Democrats? Isn't there? Listen, you're not doing your job. You literally took an oath that you're violating right now.
Yeah. No, the Congress as a body, if we were acting appropriately, you could actually remove her from office in Congress and not allow her to sit. I'm not going to advocate for that, because her voters should be doing that. But I will tell you this, that is the ultimate penalty for her in Congress. But we need to be expressing ourselves strongly.
You know, when you argue with a fool, you just prove there are two. And I consider Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Presley, I think is her name. They call themselves the Squad. I consider them to be fools. They hate America. They think America was wicked in its origins, and it's even more wicked today. They ought to be thanking America instead of calling America evil and wicked and racist. But this is America, and they have the right to their opinion. But I don't like to see the president even dignify their point of view. Besides that, I think that the Squad, as they call themselves, they are they are destroying the Democratic Party. You know, when your opponent is screwing up, don't interrupt him. Let him go. I mean, just looking at this from a political standpoint, if I didn't know better, I would think the members of the squad were GOP plants. I mean, they think that illegal immigration, socialism, higher taxes, abortion are all moral goods. They think America, Israel, free enterprise are moral bads. That's not what most Americans believe. And that's kind of where I am on the subject. The president has explained his position. He has said, look, here's what I meant. If you're not happy living in America, leave. It's a free country, and I agree with that assessment.
The background of Ilhan Omar is really fascinating, and of course, like so much in her background, completely unexplored. The media has no interest in delving into where she comes from, who her influences were, what her family members did. And I think the most amazing thing about her story is actually that she holds these views. She describes herself as an intersectional feminist. She's obsessed with identity politics. She sort of personifies the perfect multiculturalist leftist milieu, and she could have picked up those views as easily in the enclave in which she grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, as in the Somalia of her birth. And I think it really bears noting, incidentally, that no one has really ever talked about her family influences, even though she talks about quite frequently the influence of her father and grandfather on her own political course, and they were both members of the government. Her father called a teacher's teacher within the Somali regime, and her grandfather has been able to director of marine transport there. And that regime was a Marxist Islamist dictatorship. And that is not Ben Weingarten talking. That's actually how the New York Times described it, and how Siad Barre, the dictator who ruled Somalia, under which her family prospered, how he himself described it. She came over with her father and a sister as well in the early 90s, originally to Virginia, and then they resettled in the Minneapolis area, where there is a very large enclave with tens of thousands of Somali refugees who are resettled there. And again, it's quite interesting. No one has really done the digging, delved into what her father was doing there, but the reality is, as a teacher, and as many other teachers that she has cited, formed her kind of family background there and influenced her. A teacher in a Marxist Islamist regime, Soviet-backed, was themselves inculcated in the ruling Communist Party ideology of the Soviet Union. Again, it was a Marxist Islamist dictatorship itself. And the fact that no one is even curious about what influence her family members had on her is quite interesting, as is the fact that, by her own admission, she was privileged to use her own party's parlance in Somalia rather, before she went to a refugee camp in Kenya. She lived in a compound. There were beggars outside. Her family would feed those beggars. She talks about a house filled with books and the like. Just this wonderful paradise-like experience in, again, a Marxist Islamist dictatorship. She comes to the U.S., and again, what's amazing about her district is that her district, which consisted largely, and this is as a state representative, her district, which consisted largely of Somali refugees, also consisted as well of 2 college campuses. And it was actually those college students who pushed her over the top in helping her topple a 44-year incumbent in Minnesota State House to ascend to be a state representative, and then shortly thereafter a member of the U.S. House as well. And I mentioned Obama before, and the parallel is, interestingly, that she was also a community organizer. She talked about the fact that her parents told her to organize for what she wanted to achieve in the U.S., her brand of justice, which of course is antithetical to the justice that you and I believe in. That she sort of personifies the unholy alliance between the left and Islamists. And I had Andy McCarthy write the foreword to this book. He wrote the book, The Grand Jihad, where he talked about sort of how these two sides reconcile their seemingly antithetical views on social issues and a whole number of other issues. And I think really the simplest answer here is that they are able to set aside their differences, because it is Judeo-Christian Western civilization that stands in the way of both of their paths to conquest for power. Obviously, the worldview of the progressives flouts completely the ideals, principles, values, institutions of our founding. And of course, we know that Islamic supremacist ideology is inherently expansionist, totalitarian, cannot brook any sort of dissent. So in this regard, they're both totalitarian belief systems, And the stumbling block to those totalitarian belief systems is best represented in America. And so if you believe that America is inherently evil, it's a stumbling block to your system, as Ilhan Omar has argued, and she basically has called us, in far harsher terms, deplorable, irredeemable, ignorant, and the like, then naturally justice demands that you overturn that system. And so what I argue in the book, and I go back and look at the historical roots of both the Jew hatred among socialists and on the left, and the Jew hatred that has predominated in the Islamic world for centuries, they have come together really in the last 50 plus years, and it was in the Soviet Union and the Middle East, a very deeply intertwined alliance there against the West, which they would call, the capitalist, imperialist, oppressor West. And Ilhan Omar is sort of the modern instantiation of that belief system value and ultimately their goal of toppling us. It's really important to note that she was named the co-chair of his campaign in Minnesota, which is a pivotal state in 2020. So this isn't some bit player. This is actually a very substantial player in the Democratic Party today. And also, with respect to Bernie Sanders labeling himself now embracing his Jewish identity, where before he completely ignored it, essentially, he has basically described his Jewish identity as leftism. And that speaks for itself, stands for itself. And I would argue that that is not actually what the religion stands for. In any event, in terms of the whole anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism thing, not only does Ilhan Omar surround herself with people who attack Jews qua Jews, not just the Jewish state as the collective Jew. What I argue is that in reality, what that Jew hatred comes down to is a hatred of Jews and the Jewish state as representative of and a bulwark for Judeo-Christian Western civilization. And so the Jew hatred itself goes beyond just Jews to all of us, everyone in America who believes in our founding values, traditions, and principles. And I go in great detail in the book to show that she actually checks off every single box of Natan Sharansky's a 3D definition of what anti-Semitism is, what the State Department definition of anti-Semitism is, what the broadly recognized international definition of anti-Semitism is. But again, it's Jew hatred as a stand-in for hatred of us, hatred of all Americans.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.